Hi guys, it's Steffi from the Novelty Corner. Happy New Year and welcome to my last reading wrap up for 2017. This reading wrap up takes place from the 24th to the 31st of December. I went one extra day just to wrap up 2017 in one reading week, plus I won't get a chance to film this until New Year's Day. So wherever you are in the world, I hope that you are having a safe and happy first day of 2018. May it be filled with many wonderful things for you. I'm also trialing some new lights, so I'm not 100% sure if this is going to be too bright or whatever. So if it changes during the video, it's just me testing things out. So please bear with me. And I'm going to get straight into the reading wrap up because I read 11 books this week, because the week between Christmas and New Year is a nothing week for me, and I was house sitting, so I had time to just sit and read, and I was reading about two books a day. So that was just to finish off the Lover's Way bingo challenge, which I did. I actually managed to complete all 25 challenges. So my little bingo board is now completely full, and I will have the updated little completing of this journal in the video at the end, so you can definitely check that out. So here are some stats about my reading week. As I said, I read 11 books. I also read a total of 3,151 pages, which, you know, that's a lot of pages. I finished the year off having read 266 books, which is just phenomenal. And I don't think I'll be getting that same reading count this year because I'm going back into the classroom full time. So I'm going to be a little bit busier than I would normally be. But I'm still really, really pleased with that effort. And because there are 11 books, I'm probably not going into the plot of them in a huge amount of detail. I'll just give you a general idea of the book. I will leave a link down below to Goodreads so you can definitely check it out if you would like to, and just some of my thoughts on it, because otherwise this video is going to be really long. The first book that I read this week is a 2016 release from Penguin. It is The Sidekicks by Sunkissed. It is the story of three boys whose best friend has died, and prior to that they weren't friends with each other. They just happened to be friends with this one particular boy who has died, and this story is the unraveling of his death and its impact on them. I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. I read it for the Own Voices square in the Lover's Way bingo challenge, and it was a really great story, and I don't often read a lot of books by male authors with male protagonists, so this was really interesting as well. Next, I read Summerskin by Kirsty Eager. I read this for the Set After High School square in the Lover's Way bingo challenge. This was a 2016 release from Allen & Unwin, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It is the story of Jess Gordon, who is a college student, and she is out for revenge against a rival boys' college who in the previous year had set up a bet to shame one of the girls from Unity College where Jess attends, and it happened to be her best friend, and so she is out to get them in the following year. She meets Blondie and decides that he's going to be her target, but things are not quite what they seem, and Jess soon finds herself in over her head, but also she finds herself at the same time. This was a really fun read. I really enjoyed it. It is smart, it's sexy, it is full of strong female characters who make mistakes and who learn from them, and I really enjoyed this book. The next book I read was Valentine by Jodie McAllister. This is a 2017 release from Penguin. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think I received this in a YA Chronicles box last year, and I read it for the 2017 release square on the bingo board. It is the story of 4 teenagers who have all been born on the same day, Valentine's Day. One of the 4 teenagers is actually a Valentine, which is a silly changeling from the fairy courts, and they don't know which one it is, and the 2 courts, the Silly and the Unseelie court, are after the Valentine for their own purpose. The story follows Pearl, who was born on the same day as Finn. However, she has disliked him for the entirety of that time. However, they find themselves having to work together to uncover who exactly the Valentine is, what it means, and how to save themselves. This book felt like the pacing was off. There was a whole lot of exposition in the middle, which is why I didn't give it high rating, because I really like things with fairies and fairy courts and the Silly and the Unseelie. I did really love the creepiness of the fairies in this, because they are not your fun, light-hearted fairies. This is not a court of wings and ruin. These are really, really brutal, mean, vicious fairies at times, and I loved it. I found that I began to suspect something was going to happen, and then when it didn't, I was actually left really disappointed just because of the way that it was built up. So that sort of let it down for me. But it's not a bad read if you like fairies, and it's Lover's Way. Then I read Beautiful Mess by Claire Christian. This is a 2017 release from Text Publishing. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was a really fantastic read. I read it for the mental health rep square on the Lover's Way bingo board. Things have been going pretty wrong for Ava since her best friend died, and she finds herself thrown out of school. She has to make new friends. She has to learn to live in a world without her best friend, and she's full of this rage that she doesn't know how to control. And we also have Gideon, who is a boy that she meets who goes to her school before she's thrown out of it. And he himself is dealing with his own demons. He is a wonderful cinnamon roll of a character. He is absolutely gorgeous. But I really felt for him in this book because he is dealing with a lot of stuff. What I really loved about this particular book is that there is a lot of really positive mental health representation in it. There is a lot of positive rep for seeking counseling and guidance from other people and help. There are really supportive parents in this, which I cannot praise enough. So I really, really recommend this book. Then I read Living on Hope Street by Demet Divarowan, and this is a 2017 release from Allen and Unwin. It is a pretty hard story to get into. What is going on with the light? Blame the outside. So I apologize. Oh, it must be a cloudy day. So this is a really hard book to read because it is about domestic violence, and it is about racism, and it is about immigration, and it's all set on Hope Street. So we have a lot of point of views in this. So if you're someone who doesn't like switching between point of views all the time, you're probably not going to enjoy this one. However, I found that it was really useful because it jumped around perspectives when it needed to. Primarily, it tells a story of Kane, who is a young boy who lives with his younger brother and his mother, and his father is very abusive towards his mother. He decides that he wants to take matters into his own hands and finds himself becoming a monster just like his father, and it's up to the people on the street to really help him out. There are a whole host of really awesome characters that I really like. They're all very real. They're all characters that I know. I know people like this, and it was just a really interesting read. I read it for the bingo square Living in the City, and one of the bits on the back, I'm going to read it to you because it really sets this tone of the story. It says, on this street, everyone comes from different places, but to find peace, they'll have to discover what unites them. And I think that's what came through in this book. Then I read Facing Up by Carolyn Gilpin. This is a self-published work from 2014. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. It is about a girl who is overcoming trauma and overcoming grief. I found it really engaging and really interesting, but I'd read a lot of really heavy topic books, so it's one of those things that I think maybe if I'd had a little bit of time, it would have sunk in a little bit more for me, but I did really enjoy it. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Again, it has that young female character who is really trying to deal with what's happened in her life, and it felt really real and raw. As always, I'll leave a link down below so you can definitely check it out. Then I read A Town Called Dust by Justin Woolley. I read this for the debut novel square on the bingo board, and it is a 2014 release from Momentum, and I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. This is a YA dystopian book set in the Northern Territory with zombies who are called ghouls, and basically the world's ended, and Alice Springs, or Alice as it's called, is the last haven for people living in that area, and it has a large fence around it to stop the ghouls from getting in. And then they have the border police patrol, who are called the Diggers, who patrol and try and protect the city of Alice. We primarily follow the story of Squid, who's a young orphan boy who lives in the Outer Territories, and Lynn, who comes from Alice but is desperate to become a digger and to follow in her family's footsteps. And so she goes undercover as a boy to infiltrate the Diggers and to receive training and then to fight the ghouls. I really, really enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I have the next 2 books in the series, and I really want to check them out because I just want to see how Squid and Lynn's story continues. Then I read Untidy Towns by Kate O'Donnell. This is a 2017 release from the University of Queensland Press. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars and read it for the Small Towns square on the bingo board. It is the story of 17-year-old Adelaide, who one day wakes up and decides that she is going to leave the prestigious boarding school that she is attending in the city and travel home and come back to her small town with her mother and her younger sister. This, of course, sets a few problems in place for her. Her grandparents had set a lot of stock in her attending the school and achieving her dreams and going on to become whatever it is that she wants to become in the future. And the compromise is that she basically is doing the last year of school via correspondence and working at a local small town museum with her grandfather. Even though she decided to come home, Adelaide begins to find that life is a little bit dull and monotonous until she meets a boy named Jared and a whole new world opens up. And it's the story of the progression of their relationship. It is Adelaide's coming of age, and it has really, really wonderful family representation in it, so I highly recommend that. Then I read Rise of the Fallen by Tegan Chilcott, which I read for the Indigenous Author Square on the bingo board. It is a 2013 release from Manga Books, and I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars. It is essentially a story about demons and angels, except there's not a huge presence of angels in it, which, I don't know, frustrated me a little bit. And while I enjoyed the concept of it, which is why I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars, I don't think it was executed as well as I would have liked it to have been. I think if I was a little bit younger, I would have liked it a lot more because the writing wasn't quite as polished. I believe it's the author's debut book, so fair enough, I'm not criticizing that. But for me, the writing wasn't as tight and the storyline wasn't as tight as I would have liked, and sometimes it felt like the dialogue was really stilted. Then I read Lorinda by Alice Pung, and this was a 2014 release from Black Ink Books, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It is the story of Lucy, who gets a scholarship into the prestigious Lorinda, which is a high school for girls, and she gets in on an equal opportunity scholarship. So she comes from a migrant family and they don't have a lot of money, and the school is basically out to make themselves look good. There she finds herself having to navigate the social structure of a private girls' school, as well as sort of finding her place and understanding where she fits into this structure. And I related to this so much. I absolutely adored it. It was wonderful, beautifully written, very, very easily accessible to readers. And there are a lot of references in it that I absolutely adored, and I loved seeing the window into Lucy's family life as well. And just because I got to finish off 2017 with 2 5-star reads, the last book that I read was Life in Outer Space by Melissa Keel. This is a 2013 release from Heidi Grant Egmont, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, obviously. I read this for the male protagonist square, and I adored this book. It is so full of movie and geeky, nerdy references that I was just smiling as I read this book. Our main character, Sam, is a geek and proud of it. He and his friends are sort of towards the bottom of the food chain at their local high school, but he doesn't really care. He just moves through life. He's determined not to get sucked in to the social goings on of the rest of the school until Camilla moves to the school, and he's struck by her uniqueness because she flits around from group to group. She gets on really well with all the popular kids, and for some reason she also really likes hanging out with Sam and his friends, and she likes playing World of Warcraft and watching movies. He finds himself being swept up into her world, and he doesn't realize that he's falling for her, and it's the funniest thing ever. I absolutely love this. Extra bonus points for Stargate references, because Stargate was my nerdy TV show as I was growing up, and there were, I think, 2 references in here, and I absolutely adored them because they were spot on. Definitely pick this up if you haven't tried it before. I highly recommend it. So those are my books that I read this week. In the comments, let me know, what book did you finish 2017 with? I would love to know. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're having a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Thanks so much for watching, guys. See you later.